Hello, I'm John Sace. Today we explore a unique feature of the Hasselblad 500 camera used to photograph the Apollo 11 moon landing in 1969. This particular model was built with a coordinate system etched into the glass. This coordinate system helped astronauts to compose shots. The system measured 5 rows by 5 columns. The array contained one large cross at the center, surrounded by 24 small ones. Portions are visible in many crop moon surface photos. NASA director Werner von Braun lent this camera to filmmaker Stanley Kubrick. Perhaps inspired him to use the Hasselblad coordinate system and square film resolution in The Shining. By the way, this camera auctioned for $910,000 in 2014. In the opening shot, Kubrick centered the tallest tree on the island and the surface of the lake along the vertical and horizontal meridians. This allowed him to capture a symmetrical sky-water reflection that appears as a horizontal hourglass. Kubrick was meticulous, perhaps obsessive, about framing his shots in The Shining. Notice the positioning of Danny's hands, his pointed finger, and how the horizontal meridian passes through the diagonal corner of the sandwich in his mouth. Here is another well-positioned scene in which Stuart Ullman, the manager of the Overlook Hotel, positions his crossed hands in the center of the frame. Also note the framing of his elbows on the desktop, arms, and hairline. In this shot, Ullman's assistant is centered along the vertical meridian while Jack Torrance sits off-center, but with his hands horizontally aligned with the table and Ullman's right hand. Ullman's vertical alignment parallels the orange column that matches his pants. Contrary to popular belief, all interior and medium shot exteriors were filmed on sets at Elstree Studios, north of London, England. These sets were built to Stanley Kubrick's exacting specifications in order to conform with his storyboard framing. In the game room, Danny encounters the twins dressed in Alice in Wonderland dresses. The girls are centered to the symmetrical poster beyond the doorway. In addition, posters, furniture, phone booth, water fountain, and other objects appear in tight composition. Kubrick consistently aligns his cast. In the hotel kitchen, Wendy is centered on the left vertical, Jack and Danny on the second vertical, Ullman along the meridian with Dick Halloran's head at center frame, and Bill Watson on the right vertical. The four-way symmetry of the overhead maze, which does not match the model viewed by Jack or the real maze outdoors, appears as the key to the puzzle. Except for the central coordinate, the other coordinates have mirror image pairing. Twins? The old measured distance to the moon is 237,115 miles. In an intense scene, Dick Halloran is centered along the bridge of his nose and shoulder line. Ever notice how little the actors move in medium close-ups in The Shining? Is it any wonder that the main lounge is an exercise in symmetry and placement? Kubrick designed the set, chose and placed the furnishings and appointments, and set up the shots. It also appears that he moved objects during the filming of the scenes. The Shining was one of the early films to be shot with a Garrett Brown Steadicam. Utilizing an etched-in coordinate system would help to ensure consistent framing and reduce post-production editing to achieve the symmetry desired by Kubrick. This image centers on the further twin with spots to picture frames, axe handles, and walls. Also, along the vertical meridian, we see a blood trail from the axe handle back to the 3 balls of light in the window. Danny is aligned to the vertical meridian. Rising from the launch pad geometry of the carpet, the horizontal meridian runs from the arm of the sofa and across the image of the Apollo 11 rocket on his handmade sweater. Room 237, also known as the moon room. The moon is 237,000 miles away. Here the verticals pass along the doorknob, door edges, and room 237 key and tag. The number 237 is centered along the horizontal meridian. The shot of Jack's work is centered horizontally along the bail bar. The ribbon cover aligns to the lower horizontal. The outer vertical lines ascend from the corners of the cover to frame the narrow margins of the rollers and typing. Stanley Kubrick laid on the floor between Jack's legs to frame the food locker shot. Jack's body is centered horizontally with his nose at the center crosshairs. His right and left hands are aligned to the outside verticals. At the climax, the axe handle lands diagonally to 3 crosshair points. Jack's head is centered at the horizontal meridian and left vertical. The vertical meridian and the right vertical mark the door frame, Jack's hand, and the striking axe head.